Down goes another American hero. The NBA prep continues with a look at the Nuggets, a few little signings, and a college football NFL note or two if time permits. It's all coming up on the 24th of August edition of Tip Off. Did anything we watch in sports for like a decade actually happen? USC didn't happen. Joe Paterno didn't happen. Lance Armstrong didn't happen. In Hall of Fame voters, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds' minds didn't happen. How are you? Welcome to Tip Off this morning. Yesterday was a big day in the Lock House. My little boy went away for a week of sleepaway camp before he missed the first day of school and then get back to school. He starts a little later. But it was kind of a cool day. I don't know why I just shared that, but I did. I somewhat just sit here with a stream of consciousness. Lance Armstrong is the huge news. I was surprised some of the reaction last night from people. I mean, quite frankly, if you believe that Lance Armstrong is clean, you have to be willingly ignorant. Just all of his teammates are dirty. All the doctors he's ever associated himself with was dirty. The entire sport was dirty. You really just have to be willfully ignorant, which is fine. I mean, some people choose to do that because you don't want to believe that he was dirty. The situation of what happened yesterday, I don't have. It's pretty complicated. I don't believe that most people really have followed it. They just got the headline or the Twitter and then they reacted. What happened yesterday is that if he responded, then there was going to be arbitration, and then there were going to be witnesses called, and there was going to be evidence shown, and Lance didn't want that. So instead, Lance willingly took the ban of 7, his tours taken away, and a ban from cycling. To some extent, that expresses everything. His answers, well, I didn't want to fight it. I'm tired of it. Right. And you didn't really want all of the people out there commenting on what they know, what they did, and what you may have done with them. It's fine. But the real issue is that everyone was doing it then. And this is one of the few times where I actually will buy that argument. I'm never one who buys the argument, well, everybody was doing it, right? But in this case, I really feel like I feel badly, and this goes for Major League Baseball as well, and I've thought about this an awful lot, because in the middle of this era, when I lived here in Salt Lake City, my roommates, for the most part, were Bees players. One of them was a groomsman in my wedding. We knew that people were juicing. One of them was my closest friends. I don't know specifically, but if he was, I actually wouldn't have had a problem with it at this point, looking back on it. I wouldn't, oh my gosh, your closest friend's a big cheater? Nah. And it wouldn't bother you. Because at that point, the mass amount of people inside that culture, and the same goes for cycling, and probably the same goes for football, that were cheating made it commonplace. It just was what the game was at that point, and frankly, it was being barely legislated. Cycling was actually attempting to be legislated slightly. In baseball, they weren't even trying to legislate it. I understand it's illegal. I understand a lot. But we've all been there. We've all been in a circumstance in our life, in a group behavior, in which if we look back, we're embarrassed by that behavior. I'm assuming. At least I know I have been. Whether it was my college fraternity, things my college baseball team did, conversations I was in at those times that were inappropriate, disrespectful, actions that I saw that I allowed to go by because it was part of the culture. And eventually, I look back at it now as older and smarter and regret. And I'm sure those athletes that juiced regret. But I also think I get it. If I take the example of the AAA baseball player that was, or even the Barry Bonds, or even a Lance Armstrong, I can't be hating on that guy for doing it. I can't be hating on that guy for, frankly, any of these Olympians in that period of time. for using the drug to get better, to finish their dream. They went on this journey, they gave their lives, and then it turned out that to do what they wanted to do, this was part of it. I can't hate on those guys. It was truly part of the culture inside of the small little world they live at a level that none of us can understand. The second angle is I feel really bad for the guys who didn't, because they probably got left off by the wayside. Some of the guys who didn't were able to survive, probably not in cycling, some in baseball. And I feel for them if they got left off and missed along the way. I think that's a really sad, unfortunate story. The only person that really drives me bananas in this end of uh, the spectrum is the people that are out there screaming and yelling, trying to keep everything clean, claiming everything's clean, bad mouthing all the people that doped while they did dope. Uh, my friend, I was out last night with a friend of mine who's a podcaster called Fredcast for it's a cycling podcast, very very popular cycling podcast called Fredcast. We were out for dinner last night, and he was telling me about the head of the Garmin team. It's a guy who, when he raced, now he's vigilantly against it, and when he raced, he was dirty. Come on, I'm not sure I can handle that. But if we really are honest about the culture that these guys were in, it was being done. It wasn't even peer pressure; it just was being done. To believe, when you look at Lance's teammates, the doctors, some of the evidence and circumstances that are around, you have to be willfully ignorant to believe he's clean. The bigger question is, do we care? It's what was going on in a game in which virtually everyone was doing it. He was the best of the riders of that era. Barry Bonds was the best baseball player of a dirty era. And he was dirty, but he was the best. And the mass percentage of people that were doping means that there's something legitimate just being the best of that group. Frankly, he was the best before he doped. Both of them could maybe be able to argue that. I'm not sure. So that's my feeling on that. It's too bad that we are from this era. The other discussion has to just be, what is a performance-enhancing drug? Tell me how a baseball player getting LASIK eye surgery is any different than a guy taking something so he gets stronger muscles. Right? Improving your eyesight. By the way, the next one is Tiger on this discussion, just to knock off everyone. I don't think it ever comes out, but his affiliations and some of the doctors he's been to are pretty questionable. I'm continuing my NBA prep. I'll have a bunch of it for you throughout the day. I looked at Denver for a long time last night, till about 1:30 actually, until I finally locked it up. And I'll finish today. Denver's interesting. Obviously, their big move is the addition of Andre Iguodala and the loss of Afflalo and Harrington, and the addition of JaVale McGee last year instead of Nene. They finished the year very, very strong, playing very, very well. But if you look through it, they only had one win in April over a playoff team, and prior to that, it was somewhere against Chicago in March. So it's hard to tell really how much they've changed. The issue for them all year there's two things that separated Denver from the star teams in the NBA, and it's going to be curious to see how this plays this year. Number one is Gallinari's injury was enormous. He played only 43 games. He missed 33% of the season. When he is on the floor, they are great. Gallinari is one of the truly most underrated players in the NBA who has an enormous impact on the game and is able to play both the 3 and the 4. When he was on the floor last year, per 48 minutes, they were plus 7. That's big time. And if he suddenly, now he's missed 40-plus games in the last 2 years, but if he's suddenly able to be healthy, I think you're going to see them playing him as a 4, which stretches the floor pretty dramatically. Iguodala as a 3, then playing their various guard systems as there with JaVale McGee or Fareed as the center, that's going to make them tough. I think they're going to be very good. If Gallinari is healthy, they are very good. Their other problem, though, was that they just couldn't make plays late in games. They don't run a very structured offense. They run that up and down running game, and then when it gets tight late, they don't have the answer on how to close the game. And that was evident all year last year. Gallinari was a terrible late game player. That is truly what is separating him from being a star. Well, interesting enough, probably the worst clutch player in the NBA is Andre Iguodala. And Iguodala was like something 9 of 23 from the free throw line last year in clutch circumstances. He truly is one of the least good late game players. He's a very poor isolation player. So Denver, who wants to play this kind of frenetic up and down mismatch game, which they're going to be able to do very, very well, still is a player or two short of late game plays. Ty Lawson tries to make a lot of plays. Interesting, it was Afflalo and Harrington, along with Lawson, that used most of their possessions late in games last year. So the loss of Afflalo and the loss of Harrington's a pretty big deal. Afflalo wasn't great in those circumstances, but they certainly relied on him. That's probably asking more out of him than he's capable. But that's what will be, somewhat of the issue for Denver. The other issue is just where, again, as we've talked about so much, and as I've talked about a lot, where I'm not sure I, have the answer statistically to be able to figure it out. And I haven't run my, I'll do that later this afternoon. I haven't run my Denver offensive numbers to see where they compare. They should be quite good, though they'll be less good than they were a year ago because of the loss that took place of Afflalo and Harrington, who both had very good years. The thing I don't know on Denver is they were 19th in the NBA defensively. We were 20th or 21st, depending on how much better does Iguodala make them? The same thing with us is how much better do we get from the play of Derek Favors. The Clippers are the next one I think will be very interesting because they were in that group. And if you look, Clippers, Denver, Utah, Minnesota, Portland, Phoenix were all kind of clustered together defensively within a point per 100 possessions of each other, which is a considerable amount, but we were all still kind of clustered together. Denver was a 103.4, and Phoenix was 103.8, and so we were all clustered. Clippers were a little better. And I don't know if how any of those teams improve or are able to get better as a defensive team. We will try to do it with Favors. Denver will try to do it with Iguodala. I'm not sure how Minnesota tries to do it with Karolinko. Portland doesn't get better defensively, and nor I don't think does Phoenix. So those may be the impact of Karolinko, Favors, and Iguodala defensively may have a bigger impact than anything else we're talking about. Do you guys remember Mike Sando? Mike Sando is a good friend of mine. Used to do it with me when I did a show. He has started a new new podcast called Inside Slant. There's been 2 episodes. It's still in the beginning stages, but if you do a little in your podcatcher or whatever, do Inside Slant. It's there, very good. He and Kevin Seifert, I think it is, do it, and they made an interesting point about the change of training camp this year. That the new CBA, has limited the amount of practices and live action that can go on in a practice, and so therefore these preseason games have become more important, and that is why you're seeing guys like Russell Wilson start tonight for Seattle and some things of that sort, because you need to give those guys live game action and live hits, which I thought was a very, very good point. The other one they talked about was just really the brilliance of the Niners coaching staff. Great stuff. Mike does fabulous work, so worth adding to your list. A few notes. Martell Webster signs with the Washington Wizards. We'll see. I think that's a good pickup, though. I think he's got a little left in him. And I thought the story yesterday came out about Virginia Beach being interested in Sacramento was a little bit interesting because it's key times going on right now in Seattle, and I'm guessing that the Maloofs are trying to find some way to leverage Seattle into more money or some sort of deal when they move the Kings to Seattle. I think they'll probably end up using this to try to leverage their deal, would be my guess. All right, that's where we sit today. I hope you guys are well. Have a fabulous weekend, and I'll be back with you on Monday on Tip-Off. Follow me on Twitter at LockedOnSports, Facebook Locked On Sports or David Locke. And by the way, my friends at Level 9 Sports have got huge Labor Day sales. going on. They've got the best selection around, credible packages. So if you're looking for the Labor Day sales, check out Level 9 Sports. They've got as good a deals as anyone. Their kids packages start at like $179. That includes skis, boots, and bindings, and their snowboarding packages start as low as $139. So all very, very good deals. Enjoy yourself. Have a good Friday.